They try with a federation, the whole thing ended in confusion. Curriculum and then Carifta, but somehow a spelling disaster. Mr. West Indian politician, I mean you went to big institution, and how come you can't unite 7 million? When a West Indian unity, I know it's very easy. If you go to rap to your people and tell them like me, there is one race from the same place, that make the same trip on the same ship. And so we must put one common intention for a better life in the region, for we women and we children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man, the Caribbean. They say that the Federation was imported quite from England, and they're going and come at Caribbean with the true West Indian flavor. Since Caribbean started running, morning, noon, and night, all I hear is money speech, them prime ministers giving. But I say no send of money, good for my unity. Now first of all, your people need their identity to be one race from the same place. That make the same trip on the same ship. So we must push one common intention for a better life in the region, for we women and we children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean, the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man. Caribbean is wasting time. The whole Caribbean gone blind. You don't know from where you're coming. Then you can't plan where you're going. Some want to be communist. Brother, some want to be socialist. And one set of religion to add to the foolishness. But look, a man who don't know his history, he have formed no unity. Tell me how could a man who don't know his roots or his own ideology to be one race,
the Caribbean man,
from the same place,
the Caribbean man,
that take the same trip,
the Caribbean man,
on the same ship,
the Caribbean man.
So we must put one common intention for a better life in the region, for we women and we children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man. The Federation done dead, going to bed, but the cult of the Rastafarian spreading through the Caribbean. Rastas now in Grenada, Rastas now in St. Lucia, but to run Caribbean, yes, you get in pressure. If the Rastafari movement spreading and Caribbean dying slow, then it's something them Rastas on that the politicians know. They take one race,
the Caribbean man,
from the same place,
the Caribbean man,
that make the same trip,
the Caribbean man,
on the same ship,
the Caribbean man.
So we must put one common intention for a better life in the region, for we women and we children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean, the Caribbean man, the Caribbean man. Thank you.
The black man, Black Stallion, Dr. Leroy Calise, the Caribbean man. One of the classics, one of the Kaiso classics, the Caribbean man, 1979, a critique of the Caribbean integration, Of course, yesterday it's CARICOM Day, and throughout this week we will be observing CARICOM. Leroy Calise there, the Black Stallion, critiquing the Caribbean integration movement and making a very important point. His thesis there is that it's not politics that's going to unite us. It is identity and culture. Very serious point. And people are writing doctorates on that now, doctor thesis and all of that. And Stalin made that argument in 1979. In fact, Dr. Eric Williams took him on and said, all we didn't come on the same ship. What about Indians? Indians come on another ship and so on, And what about Chinese and Portuguese? And Stalin told him, all of them come on ship. On ship. And the artist as the license. Good evening to all of you. Good evening especially to the people of Region 9. I met a gentleman from Region 9 today. As I was going into a meeting, he was coming out and he told me that there are lots of viewers of Politics 101 in Region 9. And so I want to shout out the people of Region 9, Region 8, up there in the interior. Sometimes we don't realize that these are not the old days. Now, once you get internet, Wi-Fi, you can tune into these things. So I would like to say good evening, good night to all of you for joining us from Region 9 and Region 8. We are so grateful for that. Good evening to you in the rest of Guyana. Good evening to you if you join us from the diaspora, to our sisters and brothers in the Caribbean, especially in Grenada, Petit Martinique, and Carriacou, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, and those were St. Lucia. Those were the countries that we know as of today that have been touched, and some would say more than touched, by Hurricane Beryl. Hurricane Beryl going through the Caribbean, and our sisters and brothers in Grenada, Petit Martinique, and Carriacou, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, especially they're the ones that have been hardest hit. Barbados got some touch up, and that's unusual because Barbados is so easterly that they're usually out of the hurricane path. And this must be a powerful hurricane that took a different path. And so Barbados got touched, Trinidad, especially Tobago. And our prayers, our solidarity with the people of those countries. We understand the government of Guyana is committed to sending resources as they must. Guyana now has resources, and whenever our sisters are in trouble, we must come to their rescue. The situation is so bad, I read just before we went on, that there's an appeal to the international community for resources. It must be a hell of a thing. Years ago, I think it was 1999, I was in Grenada. I can't remember the name of the hurricane that passed. And so I experienced what it is to lock down for hurricane. Thank God on that occasion, the hurricane veered past Grenada. And so I never got to experience hurricane, but I experienced what it is to lock down for hurricane. It's, oh my. So we continue, and lots of our people, all my friends, and all the Guyanese in Grenada, and Petit Martinique, Carriacou, Tobago, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. Our prayers are with you as you go through this natural disaster. Welcome to all of you. I continue to say thanks to all of you that I met on Friday at the opening of the PNC Congress. And yesterday I met a lot of you also at the Burnham Foundation annual brunch. And I can't remember all the names. I can't remember all the names. I can't remember all the faces. But I'm so grateful for those of you who came up to chat with me, to take pictures, to I was walking in with Henry. On Friday, and Henry got some of the people saluting to him. And so because I was with him, I got some salute too. And I think, as I've said, I think I said it last evening, and I'm saying it again. I think there's something is happening in Guyana, something is happening in the African Guyanese community that I don't think the commentators have yet caught up with. I am saying, if anybody believes there is any pure if they're let me put it this way, if you believe that the vast majority of African Guyanese today are all PNC or all AFC or all WPA or whatever we choose, they're missing the boat. I think if you cut them, they got some PNC blood, perhaps more PNC blood than other blood, but they also got some Nigerian blood in them, and I think they got a little bit of WPA blood in there. Very glad and very grateful for the reception we got, and it was all done in spirit. Some of my PNC friends were walking with me, and they said they'll have to put me out of Congress place because all the PNC women, they all gave me up. And I had to say, well, I'm not a nice, handsome man, so they're not hugging me up because I'm handsome. It must be something else. We're in good spirits, good spirit. Good evening to all of you. And as I said, on this program, we preach one love, and we say we're all in this thing together. And if we cussing down and tearing down one another, it's not going to do it. It's not going to do it. Already I see some PNC people cussing Nigel, and some Nigel people cussing Aubrey, and I don't get too much of cuss. So I somewhere in between there and saying, man, let me stop this story. I think, and I'm going to talk to Dr. Jeffrey about that tonight. I think somebody like Nigel Hughes broadens the opposition base. And people like myself, I think, help with that broadening and also what I call strengthening. Because if you're a PNC African and you look around and you see that Nigel Hughes is on your team and perhaps the David Hines on your team too, you are reassured. And so we have to begin to look at this thing different. And as I ended last night, I said, all those you all who start cussing Nigel about conflict of interest and so on, that cussing is supposed to come from you all, right? Let the PPPC get conflict of interest. And let me tell them, Patatel Canary, e bottom black. It's not your business about conflict of interest. At least not now, all right? And all you all cussing Nigel and say he's middle class, as I said, it's just that he father they come out at the village. And we use the word ghetto now, come out of the ghetto before you father or me father and Aubrey father. That's all. They all come from the ghetto. All of we come from the cane field. All of we come from that slave plantation. And it's just that some of we father and mother escape before some. And that's why they become middle class. Aubrey father is not Aubrey father that he father come out after Nigel father, or Nigel father that Nigel father come out before Aubrey father, and so on. The issue here is what you do. After you come out of the ghetto, do you turn your back on the ghetto? That is the question we have to answer. And if we answer that question, we can't say somebody like Nigel Hughes turn it back on the rest of you. So now it's not time to cuss up. And now it's not time to carry on about who can be number one and so on. The Constitution say that somebody got to be number one. I regret that. Because you all know he's a power sharing man, and Jeffrey's a power sharing man too. And if we didn't have this been a take-all story, we wouldn't be talking about who consensus candidate and all that story. And so we must not succumb to this structural thing that is making us fight one another. All would have happened if we had a proper constitution, proper thing where we're going to take all. Each party would have gone into the election on their own. And if the PNC got 46, and the AFC got 4, and the WPA get 5 or 3 or 2 or whoever get 1, we pull it at the end of the day and we got a coalition government. But because of the Constitution, we say we got to get number one presidential, we fighting about who should be number one. All right, I am ready to roll. Tonight, happy CARICOM Day, happy CARICOM Week to you all. And good evening, Raquel Gentle, June Griffith. Good evening to all of you all. As I said, our prayers are with our sisters and brothers in the Caribbean, especially those of you who are in the path of Hurricane Beryl, particularly those of you in Grenada, Petit Martinique and Carriacou, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, in Tobago, St. Lucia got some touch up too. So our prayers are with them. Let me bring in Henry Jeffrey. Henry, good evening.
Good evening, David, and good evening to your audience also. It's good to be back.
Yes. Henry, your column this week was about oligarchs. Let me pull it up here. It's what you call the battle of the oligarchs. The battle of the oligarchs. And other people are quite literate these days because these things since they come up, so you gamp on Google and you Google and say, this is what oligarch mean, etc. But you obviously use oligarchs in that column in a particular kind of way. Explain for us.
No, well, I think, and thank you again, but I think I used it in a normal way that what people means by oligarchy. Once you have an organization, you will have people that control the organization. I know you have members, but half the time the members will not come to any meetings. They don't know. And the result is the officials of the organization almost becomes the organization. This was recognized since about what did I say? 1911 by Michel, Robert Michel. He says, say organization, say oligarchy. And the result is that these people run the organizations. And as they run it, they control the minutes, they controls the appointments and everything. And so people, as the organization gets bigger, of course, they have more patronage to give out. And the result is that the organization almost becomes their organization because nobody pays too much mind to it. And they found out that the only way to deal with this situation is really that well, let me back up here a little bit. Because we came up in a little bit of a socialist tradition, we used to say factions are bad things. You mustn't have factions in the party. We need a strong party, something like the PPP. We need a strong party and so on, factions, the leaders, and they got democratic central, which essentially means that the leader can sit down there and determine what it wants. Everybody, that's not a discourse anymore. and we have seen that occur there numerous times. But they introduced this thing of factions and primaries. The PNC, the first party in Guyana to introduce primaries. This, what they have done is not a primary, of course, because they have allowed it now so that the party has now says that that's our presidential candidate, regardless of what takes place. I mean, that's backing across from the whole notion of primaries, because the party should really be saying this is our preferred person, but we will have a runoff or whatsoever, and then David Hines can become if he joins the coalition and so on, can become presidential candidate, but that's our candidate. But we are still open to this entire thing about primaries and all of that. So essentially, that's the point I was making. And in the PNC, you have had what I call the old but not elderly oligarchs. I'm not about old people. I'm talking about people that has been there in the oligarchy since forever. And in 2021, Norton upset the oligarchy. Clearly upset them, because he won by, he says he won by a landslide. When you look at it, it can be finessed in other ways, but he did win substantially. And so what I'm saying to you now, you have the old oligarchy out there. They have lost. They have introduced this notion about all this election, essentially, so that if you remember what happened, was it 2011 or 2050, when all the ballot boxes were overthrown and all of that. And then suddenly the man who we thought lost had won at last, and then all of that. Well, those are the teething. I call that a teething process of introducing these kinds of revolution and different things. So now we come to another stage, and it's still Norton won in 21. He has set up his own institutions, and it's that lot against this lot that has been fighting. And what I was trying to say, you have to be. We have not learned that yet, because it's happened. If what I'm hearing is correct, even the AFC, the other man cussing out the other one and all that sort of thing together. But the point is that you have to be able to distinguish between dirty politics. That is when I was a dirty politics going to the grid, and what I will call radical political negative policy. Because anytime you are attacking me, you're negative. I mean, right. But it's not necessarily dirty. So we are in a discourse, and therefore you're negative to me. And if I'm running against you, you should have negativities. That's not a problem. But when you start going to the extremes, but again, these things will occur as you develop. Remember, as I said, you were in democratic centralism. Look where you're going, and it's in the right direction. But it will still have all the hallmarks of the past and possibly the future. So that's what I mean. And Aubrey again has demonstrated that clearly. His people have been doing the work on the ground, working all over the place, contrary to public opinion, and the other people have thrown in their towel.
The other people have thrown in their towel. You and I were there as special invitees to the opening of Congress. It's normal for parties to do that. And we arrived around the same time. We walked in together. And we sat next to each other. And as political people, we would have listened to the speeches, but we also would pay attention to what one would say the vibes in the room, the body language, what is it you're seeing on the faces of people and so forth. As you sat there on Friday evening, anything struck you beyond the fact this is a conference, Congress is a party Congress, the leaders giving a speech, the people give him a rousing standing ovation, anything you saw there beyond what the naked eye would pick up?
Yes, I think so. As I'm listening to Aubrey, I mean, not what I saw, but what I heard would be modest because we were in the front. So there's not much excepting our little comfort lady. Wait, no, we just call it thing lady.
Yes,
and,
right. That catch the spirit. Yeah.
Yes. And that was a little fun. But outside of that, I was listening, and yes, you said that we are shared governance people. And when I was finished and we were all getting up to go, I went over to Aubrey. I said, congratulations, because he presented well. And he introduced everything about inclusiveness, about equality, and he presented well. That was where he had to present. And because what he says, for the most part, is what people are saying, has been saying. But the point is that he presented well. That is, people say, oh, he sung like boredom and all of that. I said, okay, and that is good. And, all this talk about he's not fit and he's not fit, he's there and there and there. That's the old oligarch stuff. And so effectively, but when I was leaving, he was coming up there and I said, can I say something to you? And he says, I want to say it in your ears because I don't want no confusion. I said, what would you do if you lose? He told me something, but I didn't quite hear what you were saying. Because first of all, that has the flip side. Why should the Indians believe you? People have been telling them for the longest while. You might have said it well, but why should they believe you? The Indian part of it. Mm-hmm. You understand me? Why? What have you? I mean, what was going on in my head? I'm saying, okay, all this is nice and so on. But if you lose, like Granger was shown out, Jaguar can come back more rabid on the black population. What have you done? What is there to do to prevent that from happening? What? Nothing. So you go there and you talk and you lose because once you're not, hopefully you win, but even if you win, you still have the problem. And to win, you will have to carry some Indians with you. Why should the Indians believe you, particularly? And that's why I tried to do the article I did here, the Battle of the Oligarchs. The truth is that you have to liberate the Indians and yourself from the present structure of governance. People can't just believe that their rights are only being maintained because me party in power. People got a right for their basic rights to be maintained, and not only just rights not to be locked up or anything, but equality and all it, most of the things he spoke about. Suppose you can't be setting up gold project and giving who you like scholarship, and then giving what the school grant giving. I mean, you have governmental structures to these things. And if you're not doing that, when you lose, you can teach. I mean, what's going to happen to the teachers and everybody, particularly if they're Afro-Guyanese? No, I'm saying that can't work. Like, it can't work. You have to have some sort of a constitutional arrangement that guarantees people that the PPP can't do what it's doing today. You understand what after the writing the American Constitution, what they had to do, come back and do, because lots of the states said they're not going to sign. No, what they have to come back and do, they have to do a Bill of Rights.
Confederation, the rights. And when they were told that there is nothing in the Constitution, right? Nothing in the Constitution to deny your rights.
A million people, and I only got 1 million. California can do what they want to me. No. Both of them got this. Rhode Island, for instance, got 2 senators. California got 2. And 40 million people, Rhode Island. Democracy is not majority rule. Democracy is the rule of law based upon acceptable principle of majority rule. We must accept. If you go today and say to Barbados, let's join, or they say, oh, let's come together, and you say, well, all right, majority rule, you think they're joining? It's nonsense. It's nonsense. They would say, no, sir. We gotta get some veto all over the place about what you can do. Next thing you know, all Guyanese say you do what you like with majority rule because you got more people in Barbados. So that is what happened during the American Constitution. And that's what you need in Guyana. You have to. And you know, talk about Nigel Hughes, as you were just now. He has expressed this kind of views only recently. You remember, not in that holistic way, but certainly wasn't he speaking to the whole notion of super majorities?
Yeah.
And way back when I had to, way back, he was talking about how many people from which party must get governor. No, that is his strength. I mean, right now, because there's a couple more months he's saying that now, just the other day, you know, when I know Aubrey used to talk about shared governance like you today, Aubrey was standing on that stage telling me the Constitution is all right. You really heard him?
Yes, I did.
Good. That's why I went and said, what if you lose? So...
Yes. Going into the Congress, there were all these controversies. The 2 major candidates pulling out at the last moment, charging that the system lacked integrity. There were the public charges by a party member, female party member, of sexual impropriety. One party member or supporter went to the court to stop the Congress. But there they were on Friday, the Congress came off. And you didn't get the sense that this was a Congress that was under such duress, as I would put it. What happened there? I mean, if you were to walk off the road and you walk in there on Friday, you didn't know that all these things happened just a mere days before, weeks before. You look at the thing there, you'll be surprised.
What? Definitely. But you see, that's why I said there's negative criticism and really, really doing bad things and trying to bring there was no question that Norton, all that came up for one reason, that Norton was going to beat them up. It was quite clear to me. All my friends, I sit down at the bars, I drink all the time. So, same thing, they must be accusing Norton. No, they can't accuse me. But the point is that he did the work. He's getting some of the same flack Granger got for not taking on. Well, Granger seemed to have thrown overboard the whole notion that we live in an ethnic society. He seemed to be selling this view that Guyana is like a one Guyana already. I mean, his family and all that, they got ethnicity. That even people outside said, this is real. This is not real. If it's not real, there's some kind of game going on here. God, this can't be real. All of us know this is an ethnic society since God knows when. And for me, Aubrey, that Congress, when I got in there, when I went in, remember, the back wasn't as filled as we when we walking. But thousands of people, I said it was always going to be like, because this man was always, you only got to look at him on YouTube to see that he's all over the place. He's doing his work. And when you ask people in the villages, ask you, where I know Ford from? Who is Ford? You go to the villages, that's what people are saying to you. Not that there's anything wrong right there. It's just that Norton has been there, and he ain't got going in a village to make friends. He got friends there already. If Royce go there, he got to make 2 friends or something. He got his friends there, and the friends will expand. And that's really what happened. He's a bright enough fella. And he does the work, and therefore he has a right to be where he is. And that's another thing about Niger, because if they're going to try to say, no, this middle class, you got their own thing. So effectively, if they're going to try to say Niger must remove or I'm not going to be part of that either. Because no, I'm not. He's been there for 50 years. Niger was in law for half of that time. He was there doing the work, and he has demonstrated quite clearly that he can do. My problem is with his ideology, and that can change because there seem to be change. But is what he's saying going to solve the problem? And that's a big problem. That's a big thing. That's a big thing. But in terms of doing the work on the ground and have the capacity to be the president, oh my Lord, look around who's president and who has been president. So, let me be real. So, there's no question about it. And in terms, you're not going to win any Indian votes. Please don't think you're going to win any Indian vote. If both parties, even Nigel, anyway, Nigel didn't say he's running for any president. He says he can be the preferential presidential candidate, but I ain't gonna run. I mean, all right, but you have to get real. None of them gonna win any Indian votes. Or they gonna win it. What are they gonna tell the Indians? Why are you gonna go there? What Norton got to say? This is what I will do. They're gonna say, why should we believe you? We have practical experience of people who say they're going to do something, and next day, 7,000 of we get knocked off. How do you set up one set of committee to look at the matter? 7,000 of us got knocked off. So what is this? What is this? Will you come into us and tell us now? You ain't got no backup. That's what I said. Both the Indians and Africans got to be liberated from the notion that their party got to be in power for them to have basic equitability and all of that. If you take that away from the PPP gone down the tube. The PPP are locking the Indians in this thing that they must fear the PNC. The day you take away that from them, the capacity to say there is no fear, because here, if I even vote for you, I don't vote for you, you will be at the table and you can protect me. So why should I necessarily vote for you? I don't have to. And but they've got to be liberated from this thing. If your party is not at the table, you're doomed, as is occurring now.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight on Politics 101. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to you, Sister Leslyn. Sister Leslyn, you use all to your name tonight. Good evening to all of you who are joining us from the Eastern Caribbean, where you are locked down as Hurricane Beryl is passing. Jeffrey, let me give you this statistic, and I'm sure you've seen it. We had the PPP Congress. They elected a 15-person central executive. Not one is African. The PNC top 5: leader, chairman, 2 vice chairman, and treasurer, all 5 black. We go over to
who is that?
The PNC.
Yeah.
We gone to the AFC now. All the chairman, vice chairman, general secretary, all black.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, I didn't mean to laugh, Jeffrey, but you know we're going. You know where we're going.
I look at it. I say, essentially, I don't know if these people don't sit down and think about. If I was the AFC, I would not have thought at this stage that I get Redrock Cambridge if I got nobody else to put up there. I mean, and because you're electoral politics. Because who votes you? Ghana people vote rate. Don't forget it. So who votes you are coming for now? When Corbyn make his error, well, not Corbyn make the error in 2006, because you have to make the error with all the confusion with who should be leader. But put that aside, Corbyn had to come back. Corbyn was walking away for the 2006 election. He didn't want to be there. The truth is, after the thing gets very late, he come back in. No. When you see all of that, and always operating. So the AFC came up. That is when the AFC was born. And so it got a whole lot of votes, and most of it, I think, around Linden and that kind of. But what black people vote? So now, what are you doing? It's the same story, Yogan. You have done nothing to liberate the Indians from the PPP. Where you going with it? And then furthermore, you are in the coalition that did everything the PFP going to throw at you, because you can throw at them too, but hey, mind, they got a community lockdown. They got a community lockdown more than you can ever have your community lockdown. So you got to get real. So I am not certain what it is you're up to. And let's even say, you throw Aubrey and you put Nigel. So what? Nothing for Aubrey. Or you get Nigel as thing and Aubrey as the prime minister. What are we doing? What do you think they're doing? But my job is not that. My job is to tell them to do what I do. I do the analysis. They can run how they want, and nobody can like me. But the point is, I really don't see it. And then there's a whole lot of other confusion or conflict of interest. And so you realize that I'm going to tell a story. We can't think, 10 years must be passed. Nobody can. When they can sue you or something. When Ralph Ramkaran was going up to be presidential candidate, Moses Nagamutu was one of the chief men say he can't go up because there's a conflict of interest with him being in commercial part. And Ralph said, but I can't give up commercial part. All my children, I ain't getting no particular pay for parliament. My children are at school. Who will pay for these people? And so Ralph withdrew. But the same Moses Nagamutu now seem to be, well, to be truthful, give it to him. He congratulated Nigel on his leadership of the AFC. But I hope Yeager move it over now, say you can stay your job and become president. I mean, because these things are too contradictory. It's like,
Henry, do you believe that the emergence of Nigeria as leader of the AFC is a conspiracy of the so-called black middle class?
oh yes. Oh yes.
Talk to us.
Oh yes, I believe so. I believe that they get beat up at one place. They know that they can't come with that again. But remember, you asked me for my belief, because belief different from knowledge.
Right.
I'm telling you, given what I know about politics and how this all comes up, Nigel, first of all, says, I am coming here because I can be the consensus candidate. More or less, as we said. Remember in his introduction. But who wants a consensus candidate? Certainly now, Aubrey. It's the old oligarchies. They want somebody that they think they can throw and get Aubrey out. I mean, oh man, everybody saw that. Now you meet them. You go to the thing where they sit on and drink all of them. Everybody says, this is another confusion they're coming up with.
Aubrey clearly has demonstrated, not just by the voting, but by the body language, the rhetoric from the, what you call the followers of the party, in a sense, endorsing the oligarchs there. Aubrey clearly came out of this thing with a bump, no? Or more than a bump.
Of course. Of course, you were there, and it's not only being there. It's noting that, remember, they were really saying, really, like, incompetent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's nobody that incompetent can do what he did. They try, they list this, that. When I listen to what they are saying, I can go almost in any organization and say the same thing. This Saturday, what? You are signing checks and this, but you just go away overnight and go and stay a week abroad. You just got to sign some checks and left it if the work will continue. I mean, that's normal. You're not supposed to do it according to the law. But when you go on, if you are the signer of check, what if both business go far because you got it gallivanting around the world? So it normally happens. So when they start up with this thing, I say, they're not giving me no substance here. Right? What is the substance about this man that they don't particularly like? I mean, if they give me some substance, I'll say it. But I didn't have any. I saw nothing outside. And then they come up with this, well, that better not be said. I mean, it was quite clear. But you gotta ask yourself, maybe you should ask yourself, why is this thing? I mean, and they believe, I think they actually believe they can win the election. And you must ask yourself why that is.
You mean they as in the PNC?
Huh?
They as in who? The PNC?
The PNC. The oligarchs in the PNC.
The oligarchs in the PNC, yes.
They believe they can win the election because they can't be doing all these things and don't feel that they can win. Why they feel that they can win is another story altogether. And if you look back to about 2006, you'll see why that is. These people beat the PPP in 2011. Well, you should know that because you
right.
But
right.
And then you beat them worse in 2015. And when Jack lose in 2015, everyone, you list to rig the election. And then he must have been called quiet in a car and said, "But there is what we just do too." And he stopped wanting and he will stop wanting. God is not easy.
Not an easy place at all. Welcome
No,
to
it's not
Politics
easy. But
101. Yes.
it's fun because you grow up in a place and once you get accustomed to it, you say, "What next?" God, it's some sort of tangential thing like that. So you must understand what's going on here. So they believe even maybe even they put you got more a little more thing and so on. It's not true that nobody was saluting me. They're saluting you more than saluting me. But that's not the point. What? You can't come up next. Are you planning to come up as a presidential candidate? I mean, why not? You did in WPA. Who's their presidential candidate that you got down there? Why not you? And you're not answering.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey trying to trap me leg before we get. But he has no more reviews left. So he has no reviews left there. They're not out. He has no reviews left. But Henry, what's the role of? And we're assuming that they have to go into this thing as a coalition as much as the PNC.
I have to do what?
They will have to go into this thing as a coalition of parties on the opposition side.
Yes, but the Constitution said that is another story.
Right.
And you mentioned it. All the things, the Constitution need radical reform. Nigel said it. Aubrey used to think it. The Constitution need radical reform. There's no question the Constitution is a dud. It's a dud. And therefore, unless you change the Constitution radically, you shouldn't go to any election, period. You are worried about, I promise you this, well, the Indians are going to believe you because they just come out for you, if you remember a couple of years ago. And then what all that entails. And then you left the black people in total cheating. If you lose, if you're going to competitive anything, you can lose. And that should not be how people run their lives and live their lives. You can lose government, but you must never be in a position that when you lose government, you can lose all. And that is what the Constitution needs to sort out.
That's what needs to be sorted out in the Constitution. Good evening, Yonet Elias, and everywhere I go, you meet people, you put faces to names, and so forth. Good evening to all of you. Henry, the PPP has been able to consistently have turnout among its base, Indian Guyanese, at 85% upwards. The coalition, it does not seem, or the PNC-led coalition doesn't seem to be able to get their turnout above 77, 78%. And that comes to something at the end of the day. So it seems as though the hardcore base is there, but I mean, if 20% of your people aren't coming out to vote, you seriously have a problem there. Is it that there are elements of the constituency that the PNC is not touching instinctively, and that the whole concept of a coalition then becomes important, so that people like Nigel, people like myself, have to pick up that 20%, 25% that's not coming out? Do you see that way?
Yeah, well, first of all, the way they've been winning elections in recent time, the PNC this is, is by stealth, in my view. Playing like they're dead, and next day they wake up and beat you. Now, that stealth required that they be quietist, like they look like they're dead. Now, if you look like you're dead, you can't in the area all day telling your people and training them in all sort of things. And that's what happens to a lots of the time. That the people in the areas, the Barnumite called sort of political education went dormant until election, and because of the ethnic thing, everybody still turn out and vote. So effectively, if you are seeing that people ain't turn out at that level, that in my mind is a problem that you face. You need more political education at that level, because the thing's supposed to be open and all of that. So that is part of Nigel work that Aubrey's work that he has been doing. That is part of his work that he's been. So that is part of it. There's another aspect you asked me about. You said, say what you were saying, yeah.
About upping the turnout from 77, 78 to let's say 85, which means you're starting out less dependent on the crossover vote from Indo-Guyanese, and
Yeah.
you have that insurance that the PPP has election after election.
Oh no, but the Indo-Guyanese a lot of them gone, and the PPP, if you know the PPP, David, ask yourself. The IRI did a research, a study. What did it say? Only 22% of the Guyanese population can say for certain, would say for certain that the government legitimate. Why do you think that is? Because electoral manipulation is widespread. When they tell you anything about numbers from about 2011, don't worry that so much people vote, and don't worry with it. It is widespread. And it's so widespread that Guyanese all over the place know about it. You can go, you can do all sort of thing at the polls, and they've been doing, Lowenfield says 5,000 people voted. And don't tell me it happened in Mauritius. No. So, and they overthrew the court overthrew the election because it happened on the ground elsewhere. It's not the first time here. 5,000 people vote who perhaps should not have voted. So, to talk about numbers like you want to talk about it, you can do it, but it's not making much sense, because essentially the thing is too manipulative. The numbers are not meaningful. If only 20% of your, and you know why there is only 20%? Largely because it's so broad-based. People know in their community, people that don't work, this one calling you to go and vote. The Americans knew that this election was rigged if they weren't helping to rig it in the first place. But all they gotta do is pick up a phone in 24 minutes. They know people in America that are voting in Guyana. Any serious governmental official, the Attorney General was going to pick up a phone and say, oh, yes, he's going to work. Well, how are we voting in Guyana? Just like this thing with Moabit and that, they know that. But you see, that is in their interest to keep running. You know, I've beat hundreds of 5,000 people. Even if it's 1,000, you think they don't know. They got a list of all these people. Oh, and then the Europeans in their report, what did they say? During the Apnew government, 2015 to 2020, the electoral list increased by what? 15%. This is not PPP now, you know. This is you. During the happening time in government, the electoral list increased by 50%. All these things got to stop. You got a proper governance, you got a proper arrangement, and the only way to do it is to not make politics a thing of fair for the various constituencies. And that we can sit down and talk about. Not all right. So you make a fancy speech and you say you're gonna do this, and half the population don't believe you'll do it. And so, yeah, we gotta stop that if we're gonna live in a normal democratic society. I said a democracy is not a majority vote. It is.
You usually say, Dr. Jeffrey, that there are things that happen that on the PPP side, that the PPP would not lose one single vote because of some of these things. Recently, we had the Americans announcing this ring with smuggling, and you call it the criminal state. Professor Clive Thomas had used that term a decade ago, the criminalized state, and that the state is actually involved. The PPP. The permanent secretary is a PPP member involved. So it's not just people of a certain ethnicity that involved in robbing the government. It's that the government is actually part and parcel of the ring. Do you think that the PPP will lose a couple of votes because of that?
None. None. Absolutely none. So I mean that. No, but Bart himself said it when the teachers strike. You remember?
Yes.
Remember when the teachers strike? What happened? Yeah, it says the teachers in some their usual constituent Ghana strike. He says, yeah, that's all right, but when time comes to vote, they vote for me. There is not a question of their strike. Can the strike don't mean that they can vote against me? And that is what counts. You have to have a united public opinion. And don't say they say it up in your areas too. Same story. So effectively, you don't have a united public opinion. You got black opinion, Indian opinion. Therefore, you can't change nothing when the other side won't do what's wrong. And if you give them the present constitution and the government, they do whatever they like to do.
Are you surprised that the teachers went back to work under the conditions that they went back? And what does that mean for collective?
I should thought that teachers, anyway, they should, after the court says to them that put them in a process, and that process break down, they should go back to the court immediately. Immediately. I told everybody else. I said, immediately go back to the court and say, well, the process broke down. What now? You are the guardians of the Constitution. The Constitution says we must have collective bargaining, and there's a process to that. And therefore, let's go to the end of the process. When we get to the arbitration and we get nothing, well, we get nothing, but let us, your job is to take us there, the Constitution said. But anyway, I'm not in those things. So
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here, weighing in on the teachers' strike that ended last week when the teachers went back to work. They signed an agreement with the government that some assurances were given that they would not mess with the teachers. But at the end of the day, as the teachers would say, we went back to work without a cent, that we got some leave, some time off, but that's all. We didn't have a cent. Any prospect of the government relenting, Henry? And
It's not for the government to relent. You must stop talking about government like if they got relent. The government is there to correct the rules of the country. The country rules said that the government must have collective bargaining. It's for the teachers to go back. I think they said they're going back to the court and say, well, this is where we have. This thing has broken down. They should have done it before. This thing has broken down. Please suggest this thing called separation of power. You are there to defend the Constitution that we have written. So please do do your job. It's at you. This strike done. The minute you seize that is strike done. It's for you now. I got on this strike if something really, really went wrong in the terms of you doing what you should. You gotta tell me, no, well, I can't do nothing. I am not a judiciary to determine that or something. And then I say, I gotta go on strike. I can do that.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight weighing in on a few issues, but we spent a lot of time talking about the recently convened, well, one was a conference and one was a congress. I was reminded that there is a difference. The PNC had their 22nd biannual Congress and the AFC had their 8th annual conference, and they both elected leaders. The AFC has a new leader in Henry Jeffrey. A new leader in Nigel Hughes. And Henry Jeffrey was giving us some analysis on what that means. Henry, as we go out, you made an observation that I thought about but didn't think it was such a big deal. But as you mentioned in here tonight, I've been in the last 15 or 20 minutes turning over in my head. Why Comrade Ramjatan is not part of the top leadership of the party? I mean, my God, Raphael has come back as General Secretary. Why? Talk to us. Is it a takeover of the black middle class? What is it?
No, you see, I mean, lots of things to do with these things. It's what you encourage people to do, no? No, Ramjatan was there. I think that Ramjatan was a necessary part. When Moses left, Moses was there and he had his time and he went. But son, I thought that Ramjatan would be a good backup for the future. But that's what I'm saying. These people are not going for no crossover votes or not. They got something in. They're not going. I know that they got people who they want in that position. If you go to the press and you look what's going on, you'll see they got people. The old oligarchs, they got the people who they would like to have in those positions. So I mean, so far they're concerned, they can come up, Nigel Hughes, knock out Aubrey, because then it'll be difficult for you to go now in our ethnic situation. You gotta represent and put Nigel as this and Aubrey as prime ministerial candidate. So he must got knock you out altogether. I'm bringing in them. I don't know what to think of this thing. And I don't know anybody's thinking of this thing excepting me. Mm-hmm. You know, understand? Let me get this quite clear. This is because I can't see any reason Cameron was there. He was being vibrant in his own Cameradian way. But I mean, so I need you out and it's only black people left.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah. Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight lending his wisdom and his analysis to our program. Henry, as usual, thank you very much for coming on.
David.
I know by the time I see you, we will have some more burning issues to deal with. It's our Guyana, And
Yes, of course.
of course, it's never a dull day in politics here. Thank you very much, my brother.
Thank you too.
And to you, the audience, as usual, thank you all very much for staying with us out in your numbers, as usual, and keeping the fire burning, ensuring that we continue to do what we do. I ended last night by saying, look, we're all in this thing together. Let's stop this tearing down, fighting up, fighting down, and so on. The people in the PNC have spoken. They say Aubrey is the man that they want. The AFC has spoken, and they say that Nigel Hughes is the man that they want. Some of you all here saying the WPA should speak, and they should say who is the man to be their president or woman to be their presidential candidate. I have always believed that each party has a right to decide who its leader will be and who its presidential candidate would be. If at all the parties decide that they are going to go in it together, they have to be very pragmatic in their arrangements. They have to be very pragmatic. In coalition building, there must be give and take. But you can't, in all seriousness, ask the so-called big party to give up the top prize without promising something equal to the top prize. I don't know how you're going to do that, but I'm saying it makes sense to me that the big party is saying that I'm not giving up the big prize. If I giving up the big prize, you got to give me something equal or more than the big prize. Even as I say that, the smaller parties also bring something. And they have to be very careful that they don't demand more than they deserve in terms of numbers. But do we know the numbers? I think it would make sense for the opposition to have their own internal polling and to have the relative strength of the parties to begin with. And we have a sense of where and the thing. Because in coalition building, it is not only votes that are important, although that is the most important component. You're also talking about financial resources. You're talking about intellectual resources. You're talking about people operating in niches that they are good at. So there is a lot more than the votes you bring in coalition building, but the votes are important. The potential and real votes are important. And so therefore, this whole business of saying to the PNC that they should not have the top spot. I would have liked if you didn't have to put up a top spot person. That would have solved the problem. But the Constitution says you got to put up a top spot person. And it's hard to go to the party that is most established and the party that at the last election, when it went on its own, had more votes than the rest of us, to say that you should not have the top spot. If I were in that party, I would say, well, if you want to take the top spot from me, you got to give me something more than the top spot. Is there such a thing as more than the top spot? And so therefore, for me, if I were to advise us on the opposition side, I will play down that issue of the top spot. It's a real, we have to have somebody as the presidential candidate. But if that is what is dividing us, we should put that on the back burner for now and work together on what is uniting us. That would be my advice to my comrades on our side, the opposition side. If this story about the presidential candidate carrying us to turbulent waters, put it on the back burner for now. And let's talk about the issues with which we agree. Social class is a real thing. There are well-to-do Black people, and there are Black people who are not well-to-do. There are middle-class Black people, as we say in the Caribbean, and working-class Black people. There are some of us who are in the middle class. Aubrey is part of the middle class by virtue of education. I am part of the middle class by virtue of education. But our origins yesterday, we were in the working class. And so therefore, perhaps we came out later than the Nigerian youth, for example. But the way in which this government is going about this business and beating people and harassing and discriminating against Africans, it is not making a distinction between the harassment of middle-class Africans and working-class Africans. It's beating all of us, whether we are middle class, upper class, working class, underclass. They're beating all of us. And I think that's where our unity is. And so for now, for me, is that let's put the things that are making us fight and cuss out each other. Let's put that aside and let's start building a community, building an electoral community, because elections is where the action is. As I've said, as an old revolutionary, I still believe in revolution, but I want to turn the ballot box into the arena of revolution, which means we have to fight. We have to fight with all we have to ensure that the electoral machinery is fair and transparent. And we are not going to do that as individuals or individual parties. We have to build a movement to ensure that the electoral machinery is favorable to all of us. So my appeal here tonight to opposition supporters, I know some of you all are strong PNC. Some of you are strong AFC. Some of you, I think, are strong WPA. And you have a right to be strong whatever you want to be. But I think there's some of you, who have sympathies and sentiments for two or sometimes all three of those parties. I think it'll be hard to find an African Guyanese who would be hostile to Nigel Hughes, David Hines, if he or she is PNC. I think more and more we are socializing the base to think in collective terms, because only the collective will set us free. And we have to find a way. And I've said, when I'm around PNC type of people, I don't feel as though they're attacking me. I don't feel that way. I feel welcome. And I, in turn, accept the supporter of opposition parties as my family, right? And I think if we build up and strengthen that kind of thinking and instinct among opposition people, the PPP, their lease on life and political life will be short. I think they're taking advantage of our potential and actual disunity. And this unity does not mean agreement. Unity means that there are things with things that we share, things that we all one head on, despite our difference in approaches to getting those things done. So I'm appealing here. What happened before the PNC Congress, and I'm reliably informed some of it happened on the AFC side, let us not replicate that as we move into the lane for elections. We are only going to win if we act smart. And every one of us has a role to play. Keep that in mind. Every one of us has a role. There are some people, Aubrey is the best man to talk to them and to engage them and to encourage them. There's some people, Nigel is the best person to talk to and to engage and to convince. And I think there's some people like myself, are best able to talk to. Let us take advantage of our strengths. Let us take advantage of our strengths. And the disagreements over time, we'll work it out. An old man met me when I was in Hopetown. He said, I was around in the days of Burnham and Sidney King. And my greatest regret in life was when Burnham and Sidney King split apart in 1971. He said, African people have not recovered from that yet. And he said to me, Dr. Hines, you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility on the Sidney King side to try to correct the damage that was brought about when those two men split in 1971. So the people on the PNC side who have a responsibility. But I'm telling you, Dr. Hines, you have the responsibility on the Sidney King side of things to help and to ensure that it doesn't happen again. We are stronger when we are together. We make more sense when we are together, and we can do that. We can do that even as we compete with each other. We can do that even if we are competing with each other. Competition does not necessarily mean that we have to lick down and broke up and broke down each other. A lady today, as I was going into the bank to do some little business, she stopped me and she said, Mr. Hines, why are you trying to broke up Burnham Party? I said, well, you know, I don't belong to Burnham Party. She said, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. Your leader, when they were singing that battle song, I looked at you in the front seat. And they were singing the PNC song, and I was looking at your face because I know that it's you, leader Sidney King, who write the song that they're singing there. And she said, the people who were singing the song, the chairperson probably didn't even know that. Didn't even have the presence of mind to say that this song was written by Comrade Sidney King. And we have Dr. Hines here with us tonight. An old lady, she must be like in her 60s, 70s. She said that. And so she told me, don't tell me you are not in Burnham Party. She said, we are all in this thing together. And I want you to answer me, why they want to break up Burnham Party. And I said, here is my number. I can't give you an answer today because I have to think it through. But here is my number. Hit me up on WhatsApp. It's the easiest way to get me. And you and I can engage this subject. And as she was walking away, she said, you know, I was a school teacher. I was a school teacher. And so therefore, don't believe that my question is not coming from an informed place. And so I want to leave us with that story to say that our people are raising complex questions for us. And we, the leaders, have to accept when we are slow in reading our people, reading what our people are thinking, reading what our people are telling us. Because sometimes I think we get the wrong message. I think Sister Leslie here said tonight that even if Aubrey has won with a landslide and more than a landslide, I mean 98% is more than landslide. It's not a slide. There is a big jump. That even if Aubrey has won with that, that does not mean that there are not issues that his own supporters still have outstanding. And I share that view. Because I think our people responded to a man that they think was under siege. And poor people don't like advantage taking. They don't like advantage taking. Think about it, many times people taking advantage from you in the village and somebody pass. They're not going to know you and they come and they represent you. I think a lot of the response to Aubrey is that they felt he was being beaten up because he's of a certain hue, a certain type, he does drink at a certain place and all of that. And they stood up for him. But Aubrey has to understand That does not mean that support is uncritical and unconditional. And so, as we move forward, let us understand this thing is bigger than us. It's bigger than us. And I want to call on you, the supporters, to continue to doing what you do well, and that is to give us strength and to give us the sustenance and to pray for us always that we walk the right path. We walk some crooked path leading up to the Congress. Nobody, I am blaming nobody. All are involved or are consumed. Or as my elder, Kwayana, would say, there's no guilty race. And so in this instance, there's no guilty party. You can interpret that how you want to interpret it. We've got to cool down the tempo when it comes to the way we deal with each other, and raise the tempo in the way we deal with those who are taking us right back to the doors of the plantation. Stay strong, stay up, and remember always, the harder they come is the harder they must fall. The harder they come, the harder they must fall. Happy CARICOM week.